the most emblematic artistic form of expression of the post-revolutionary Mexico is certainly the Mexican muralist movement. And it is also the best example of a political art, but at the same time, it is an independent art. It expresses views that are sometimes aligned with the state, but others are critical. Right? And the three most prominent muralists, though there are much more than them, is Diego Rivera, Siqueiros, and Orozco. And I want to give you a very brief profile of each of these great artists. Diego Rivera, of the three, is the one that has the most solid academic formation. He studies in San Carlos and in Spain, and then he lives in France. He joins the Cubist movement. He's a friend of Pablo Picasso. And at the end of World War I, he enters into a deep personal crisis. He loses his son, and he doesn't know what is the next step he should do. And it is in this context where he meets a man that would be instrumental in the formulation of Mexican muralism, which is Elie Fauré. Elie Fauré is a doctor, a Frenchman, that had been in the trenches of World War I and had seen these young soldiers living in the worst conditions, dying of chemical weapons. And his view is completely different from the critics in Paris. And so Fauré tells Diego Rivera, you must paint for the people. You must feel, you know, the pain of others. You must paint for society. And Diego Rivera says, well, yes, that's what I've been wanting to do, but I don't know how to do it. I'm locked in this very small group of avant-garde artists. And Elie Fauré gives Diego Rivera an advice that would change the art of Mexico. Because he tells him, go to Italy, see the murals of the Renaissance. And for 18 months, Diego Rivera travels all through Italy, practically redraws all the great fresco cycles, studies the fresco technique. And when he returns to Mexico, he, with the assistance of Jose Vasconcelos, the Minister of Education, is able to view the Mexican people in a different way. Rivera would say, we painted the people of Mexico, the peasants, the workers, in the place where before had been the kings and the states. And so these murals that are painted in all over Mexico, this is Chapingo, this is the Ministry of Education, eventually have an influence in the US. And part of the WPA efforts incorporate the same idea of giving muralists the opportunity to paint. And even some of these artists come to the US. This is an image of the fresco that Rivera would do in Detroit. But then in New York, Diego Rivera paints this mural that places in the center of the mural the image of Lenin, the Russian revolutionary. And so Nelson Rockefeller orders the destruction of this mural. And Diego's career in the US would be severely limited when he was going to be doing many more murals. He only does eventually a mural in San Francisco. He would go on to do painting pre-Hispanic history, the world of spectacle and theater, even the dreams of the Mexicans. So in many ways, never before had an artist been able to change the way that Mexico saw itself and the way that Mexico is seen in the world. And this is his last, his mural where for many years it was covered because it had the phrase that God does not exist. That eventually was substituted by the place where the phrase had been said. So Diego is this lyrical celebration of the people, of the geography, and the history of Mexico. Now, Orozco is a critical voice. He begins his career as a cartoonist. And he does works like this one, where he has a statement saying that he's going to give a generous pension to the widow of the unknown soldier. And he trains himself to be critical. So Orozco would never trust politicians from any ideology. And it is interesting to compare how different his vision is from that of Diego Rivera. Here you see the image of Emiliano Zapata, to your left, painted by Diego Rivera, which is beautiful, and a white horse. And then to your right, you see the Zapata painted by Orozco, which is not interested so much in the beauty of Zapata, but as a witness to the tragedy unfolding in front of him. His murals of the revolution and his drawings are also very different. Here, for example, he shows the cruelty of the revolutionaries about to execute this man. This thing is called El Enemigo. Or it shows you the Zapatistas torturing an hacienda owner. He would do his first mural in San Ildefonso, and this image would become iconic and would have a deep influence throughout Mexican culture. Then Orozco would come to the US. He would paint Gandhi. He would connect himself with Greek and Hindu ideas. And then he would do a mural in Dartmouth College. And wherever Orozco goes, he uses his murals as a way of criticism. For example, in this mural in Dartmouth, what he criticizes is the dead academy. An academy that is taking dead knowledge out of these teachers, these doctorates, these people that are in that cubicle, or the teacher as a person that uniforms everyone and makes everybody the same. In this mural that he does in the Paraninfo in Guadalajara, he presents the creative man. And he shows it as a man with 5 faces, a man that looks at a problem from many views. He would also condemn all forms of ideology. And in this mural, he would put in the same trash can the swastika, the hammer and the sickle, and the cross. In the library of Lázaro Cárdenas, he would critique the masses as ostriches or as brutal. And in the Supreme Court of Mexico, he would paint the corrupt justices. The last mural that he would do in the US would be a criticism to the dive bomber, this war conducted from airplanes up above. It's a mural that is interchangeable. And it always shows you the tail of the devil. There's so many works that he does, so these series on slavery, but his most famous image would be also in Guadalajara, and it is the man in flames. Some say it is a Promethean figure, others that it's an Icarus. It's ambiguous, but people from all over the world come to see it and feel enriched with the experience. And the last of the muralists that I would like to briefly mention today is David Alfaro Siqueiros. Siqueiros was a soldier who participated in the Mexican Revolution and then again in the civil war of Spain against the fascists. He's deported from 12 countries, imprisoned repeatedly. And he's so controversial politically that often it is forgotten that Siqueiros is also a revolutionary in the arts. And if I may say so, one of the most influential artists in the United States, even though nobody knows about it. Siqueiros pioneers the use of new materials, the spray gun, is a teacher of Jackson Pollock, creates what he calls the controlled accident, which is how you can create an effect, a visual effect with one drop of painting falling on another, like you would do in this one, which is exactly what Jackson Pollock does in his drip painting or action painting. Siqueiros would dream of creating exhibits on billboards. He thought that you could do, the exhibits of the future would be on the sides of freeways, and he thinks of paintings that can be seen from great distance and at great speed. He's also a teacher of artists in California, where he does his famous America Tropical mural. And many of his disciples would go on to work in Marvel Comics and Disney and would apply some of the ideas that Siqueiros had for creating these proletarian heroes in the comics. Siqueiros sees the painting or the mural as a dynamic surface. He studies Renaissance perspective and foreshortening to make the painting come out or appear to come out like Uccello did. And he also studies the movement. If you move back and forth from this image, you will see how the images follow you. The lady with the knees, if you come to this side, it follows you. Try it. And so with this idea that you can use perspective to create depth, foreshortening to move forward, and that you can also create the perspective of motion, he paints these murals that are truly extraordinary. When Lincoln Kirstein, the founder of the New York City Ballet and one of the first directors of MoMA, saw Siqueiros' murals in Chile, he said, this is the most extraordinary discovery since the Cubist Revolution. Because you look at a mural like this one, and literally, it appears that all the images come close. As you walk, the images move around you. They appear to fly above you. And talking about what was mentioned about the politics of art, I must say that it was the US deliberate policy to destroy the Mexican School of Art. The last thing the US wanted was there to be more murals that had this type of content that the muralism introduced. Now we know the documents like the Cortina del Nopal that supposedly was a manifesto of Jose Luis Cuevas against the Mexican school, was really written by Gomez-Sicri, who worked for the OAS. And the problem, of course, is by attacking the Mexican school and also all forms of realism, it also destroys technique and tradition and leads us to the catastrophe that we see in contemporary art museums. When you read Siqueiros, and when he sees how all of these achievements, perspective, chiaroscuro, you know, are being eliminated to produce an art that, as he says, sees nothing, hears nothing, an art that is purely an intellectual game between artists and wealthy collectors that lie because they want us to believe that they are moved by these things. And this is false. They are snobs. Now, it is interesting to see how simultaneously Siqueiros denounces what is happening in the arts. But then when he goes to the Soviet Union and he sees the art that is created in the Soviet Union, he tells these artists, you are reactionaries. Because even if you're painting supposedly proletarian themes, you're doing it with the technique of the past. A work should be revolutionary in its theme, but also in its technique. We don't have time to mention the many contributions of Siqueiros, the use of photography as a way to becoming your own model and to enrich what you can see, or the combination of painting and sculpture. But certainly, Siqueiros is an artist that has many contributions. Look at the way that he paints a runner, or his mural, The New Democracy. When Siqueiros was being deported from the US, from California, there was a journalist who wrote anonymously and said, the artist Siqueiros, when the federal authorities are so eager to deport, is without a doubt a dangerous type. Dangerous for the marketers and the speculators in art and in life. Because when the young confront this dynamo that clamors at night, or shines when the sun of midnight illuminates the plus, maybe they too will find inspiration to raise in future rebellions in art and life, exclaiming, here comes the future.